Well, that was a lot of hockey, wasn't it? Multiple overtime games, lots of thrilling finishes. We'll talk about all of that and former Ducks that are still making a difference on this edition of Locked On Anaheim Ducks.
You're Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Anaheim Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Oh, these games were so long that even Zuri's tired. Even the puppy's asleep right there on the floor with her dog there. That's how long these playoff games were. How's the focus now? Is that better? All right. Welcome to Locked On Anaheim Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jason JD Hernandez. As you just saw, a very tired Zuri down there on the corner. I've been covering hockey for well over a decade. I'm currently the public address announcer for the Coachella Valley Firebirds. I'm going to keep this fast because I have a game tomorrow and I want to be tip-top shape for that. And this episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. Get awesome prizes, cool playing pieces, and hilarious emojis. Download Monopoly Go now free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. We're going to keep this one fast because this puppy is, oh my gosh, you got to see this. And now I've woken her up with all my talking. Okay, so I'm going to keep this fast. Oh, she's fallen asleep. I guess all that playoff excitement really tuckered her out, didn't it?
Poor puppy. She is exhausted, folks. She's tired. I mean, just me talking is keeping her awake. I'm looking at her now. As you just saw, she's kind of twitching, kind of awake. So we're going to keep this one a little bit fast because it is getting very late. Because we had some long hockey, and I will talk about those games. But first, I'm going to talk about a series that ended over the weekend that I have not talked about. And this was actually a very big story across the entire National Hockey League. And I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about this because one of the players of the game is a former Duck, a former beloved Duck, someone that was in Anaheim for a long time, someone that was in Anaheim during those playoff runs when they were winning divisions. I'm, of course, talking about Hampus Lindholm, the longtime Duck who really made a name for himself just over the weekend and cemented himself in Boston Bruins lore for their centennial season. What do I mean by that? Well, let's go back to this past weekend. Bruins versus Maple Leafs, Game 7. Why am I starting with Game 7? Well, Games 1 through 6 were good altogether, and I haven't really talked about the playoffs a whole lot because I've been trying to focus more on the Ducks. But I couldn't help but be glued to that Game 7. Apparently everyone else did because this was apparently one of the highest rated games for a Stanley Cup playoff in a long time. And I'll get to that in a second. But let's talk about Hampus Lindholm first. He started with the Anaheim Ducks all the way back in 2013. He was a first round pick for the Anaheim Ducks. In fact, he was picked 6th overall, one of the better draft picks for the Anaheim Ducks. His first season was 2013-2014. He was part of that deep run in 2014. He was part of that deep run in 2015. That very deep run in 2015 made a big difference in that playoff, and also had a deep run in 2017 as well, part of the 2016 team. So he was there for all those playoff appearances for the Anaheim Ducks, and we'll get to those series in a second. But Hampus was part of Ducks lore for a long time. In fact, Hampus Lindholm was part of another epic 7-game series, which I will talk about. But this Game 7, and I'm still trying to do live research here and look for the stats on this because this was pretty incredible on just, all the ratings for that Boston-Toronto games. In fact, here it is. I just found it from Deadline. The games for the last round averaged almost 1 million viewers. And in fact, that Game 7 between the Bruins and the Maple Leafs had an average viewership of 3.22 million viewers on ABC. And when you factor in Canada, nearly 9 million TVs were tuned in to watch that game both in Canada and America. So across North America, one of the most viewed games ever since 2012. It's been a long time since a non-Stanley Cup final was viewed that much. So it's been a long time. So thanks to that matchup, a lot of eyeballs were watching this one, and rightfully so, because this was just an epic game. A lot of back and forth, no score in the first two periods. Then the Maple Leafs score first. They struck first and, had a nice goal. And then just a couple minutes after that, Hampus Lindholm scored the game-tying goal on just a brilliant shot that was just over the shoulder. It found just enough daylight. There was maybe 2 to 3 inches of daylight right around the shoulder area of Samsonov, not Vol, who got injured at the very end of Game 6. So the Leafs were riding Samsonov. Just that little bit of daylight tied the game for the Boston Bruins, and so we went to overtime. And in that overtime period, Hampus Lindholm struck once again, not with a goal, but with the series-winning assist. Hampus Lindholm took a 100-foot pass, bounced it right off the boards at TD Garden, and that was a perfect bounce off the boards and went right to David Pastrnak, who was streaking down the sideline, collected the puck, and scored the game-winning goal in overtime to give the Bruins a 2-1 lead. So I want to talk about Lindholm for more than a few seconds. First off, the shot, perfect, as I mentioned, pinpoint. You've got to have the presence of mind and have some balls to make that kind of pass in a Game 7 overtime, but you also have to be intelligent enough and have the presence of mind to know how the boards bounce in that arena. Hampus Lindholm has always struck me as a high IQ player. He made some smart moves in previous series with the Anaheim Ducks. He's been there for those big moments. We saw this in 2017 against the Edmonton Oilers. Lindholm made some very good plays in that series. 2015, he made some smart plays throughout that entire playoff and was one of the catalysts in nearly getting the Ducks to the Cup final in 2015. So we know that Lindholm does make some big plays. You could make the argument that that's one of the biggest plays of his entire career that he just pulled off in Boston over the weekend. And to have a pass off the board, and I actually talked at length with Grant, and yes, I'm gonna name drop here, folks. So I had a conversation with Grant Fuhr about it the following day because Sunday we had a viewing party for the Coachella Valley Firebirds, and as Grant and I talked about this, there was some other folks around our table kind of going, "Oh, that was a lucky bounce," and Grant and I were in agreement on this. Grant said, "No, you have to know the boards. You have to know every single bounce, and you practice that." So he gave it up to Lindholm. He said, "You know what? That was a smart pass." So even Grant Fuhr said, you've got to know your bounces. And he went on to tell stories about how every arena has different bounces. It's not as prevalent nowadays, but when you talk, and this was Grant talking about, arenas of the 80s and 90s. Every arena, the puck bounced differently. When you think about the early 90s, pucks bounced differently from the Great Western Forum. They bounced differently from the Forum in Montreal. They bounced differently. One of his favorite arenas, the Met Center in Bloomington, Minnesota. Yeah, Bloomington, Minnesota. They bounced differently at the old Joe Louis Arena in Detroit. So just a slew of examples. And especially those old wooden boards, the pucks hit differently. Some arenas, the puck would just die when they hit the boards. Other arenas, it would take such a bounce that it feels like a rubber ball. This one was a perfect bounce. So I give Hampus Lindholm a ton of credit for having that pinpoint perfect assist. All the credit. He got both points in that one. He got the game tying goal and he got the game winning assist. And hat tip to Jessica Brand, who has worked for NHL Network in the past. Jess Brand, a good friend of mine, has been a friend of the program for a long time. She had this to say. So I actually asked her, like, game time goal, series winning assist, Hampus Lindholm, y'all. And of course, she saw that tweet and was like, okay. So she checked. So I got to give this stat. Only 43 players in NHL history has a goal and an assist in an OT in a Game 7 win. So that's only happened 43 times. And that's across all rounds over the past 107 years in the NHL. The last one to do it, Verhaeghe, who famously did it against the Boston Bruins last year against the Florida Panthers Boston Bruins series. So I thought that was hilarious. But as far as a tying goal and a game-winning goal, it's never happened. In Boston Bruins history, Hampus Lindholm is the first Boston Bruin to get the game-tying goal and follow it up with the game-winning assist. First time in Bruins history. I thought that was a pretty neat stat. I really did. So once again, hat tip to Jess Brand for that one. The apple on the eventual OT winner. Love it. So I'm going to talk about playoff utility for this series, and I realize we're kind of over time here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to head to the first intermission right now. These next two segments are going to be rather short. So I'll talk about playoff failures on the other side.
And now a brief word from Monopoly Go. All right, so I've talked about it a ton, but with Monopoly Go, there is so much that you can just mess around with on this game. You can team up with friends for timed tournaments, build up boards. You can win together, unlock awesome prizes, get really cool playing pieces, go to just really cool locales like Las Vegas. It's a fun game. So if you haven't already, check it out. It's new and exciting every day with tournaments, challenges, a robot pachinko machine, and there's always new timed events to help you win big. For everything you win or rent frenzies, there's always something new or fun to discover on Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download it now, free on Google Play or the App Store today. Game on.
There's the focus. It's perfect now. Welcome back to Locked On Anaheim Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Once again, you're locked in with Jason JD Hernandez and a very tired, still somewhat awake Zuri. Okay, puppy, I'm going to try to wrap this up fast. That way you can go to sleep, and that way I can go to sleep. I mentioned playoff futility, and I kind of went off on a tangent with Hampus Lindholm here. The Boston Bruins are the first team in NHL history, this is NHL history, to lose 7 consecutive winner-take-all games. And just to kind of rub salt in the wound, I'm just going to list all the last ones. The last time the Maple Leafs won a winner-take-all game was back in 2004 against the Ottawa Senators. That's how long it's been. So here's the last 7 winner-take-all games. Game 7 in 2013, lost to the Bruins. Game 7, 2018, lost to the Bruins. Game 7, 2019, lost to the Bruins. Game 5 in that qualifying round, lost to Columbus. Game 7, 2021, lost to the Canadiens. Game 7, 2022, lost to Tampa Bay. Game 7, 2024, lost to the Bruins yet again. By my count, that's four. That's 4 times that the Maple Leafs have lost a Game 7 to the Boston Bruins. That is a long time. The last time that the Maple Leafs beat the Bruins in the playoffs, you got to go back to 1959 in a Game 7. They went on to lose the Stanley Cup final to Montreal that year. But that's the last time the Maple Leafs beat the Bruins. 1959. That's a long, long time, folks. So when you talk about just futility, yeah, I'm just going to leave it at that, folks. I really am. I'm not going to dunk on the Maple Leafs too much longer on this one because they broke a record 2 years ago when they were the first team to get to lose 6 consecutive winner-take-all games and the first to do it in 5 consecutive years. They broke a record in 2022. There was a certain team that was tied for that record, and here's how I'm going to tie it back to the Ducks. The Ducks were tied for the most consecutive winner-take-all losses, Game 7 losses, and the Ducks were in that, unfortunately. And I don't have to mention this, but, they lost 4 consecutive Game 7s from 2013 to 2016, and those were all home Game 7 losses. Those still hurt. Those hurt. The Red Wings one, that one hurts, but that was first round. The one against the Kings, Solani retiring. The one that really still grinds my gears to this day, and I was very, very, very much rooting for the Ducks to topple the Blackhawks in that series. I didn't want to see the Blackhawks win that game. I was tired of the Blackhawks. 2015 Conference Finals, Game 7. That one hurts. 2016 to the Preds. Now they got over that hump, winning Game 7 against Edmonton in 2017. That's the last time the Ducks have won a playoff series. 7 years. It's been 7 years, folks. But at least it's not as bad as the Maple Leafs. So, silver lining, folks. Okay, that's my last time dunking on the Maple Leafs. Actually, no, it's not. I'll just finish with this. Simon Benoit didn't score a point. Ilya Lyubushkin was one of the best scorers for the Maple Leafs in the playoffs this season. In the playoffs, he had 3 points, 3 assists. What does that tell you when one of your leading scorers and one of your leading assist men is Ilya Lyubushkin? Just food for thought. Okay, now I'm completely done dunking on the Maple Leafs. Let's talk about the series that are happening right now. How about, I don't know, the 4 other series taking place right now. Let's start in the East because why not? You have Boston somehow coming back and beating Florida 2 days after they had that emotional win against the Maple Leafs. They won that one in convincing fashion. 5-1 over Florida. Wow, what a walloping on that one. And the other series, the Rangers beat Carolina 4-3 in regulation. Then we go into tonight, or as you guys see this, it'll be last night, a very long game at MSG. The Rangers won this one in double overtime. The Rangers finally beat Carolina 4-3. Vinny Trocheck got the game-winning goal. Freddie Anderson, former Duck, the snake-bitten losing goalie right there, made 35 saves on 39 shots, but it was all about Igor Shesterkin. 54 saves on 57 shots. He was incredible on this one. He was truly out of this world. So I got to give credit to Igor Shesterkin on this one. And I'll talk about the Western Conference series and talk about former Ducks and how they're doing on this playoffs after this brief intermission. Stay locked in.
Now, a brief word from FanDuel. It is winner take all time in the NBA and NHL playoffs. Yeah, don't tell it to the Maple Leafs. And FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. It's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, futures, player props, and so much more. Who's going to win the cup this year? Could it be Boston, maybe? Could it be the New York Rangers? Could it even be the Dallas Stars? Or maybe, just maybe, the Edmonton Oilers? I think Ducks fans are not hoping for that. Visit FanDuel.com/locked on and make every playoff moment count. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook and the official sports betting partner of the Locked On Podcast Network. And please, folks, gamble responsibly.
Welcome back to Locked On Anaheim Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Once again, you're locked in with Jason JD Hernandez. We're gonna wrap this one up talking about those other two series that are taking place really quickly before talking about former Ducks still in the playoffs. So the reason that this one's kind of going late is because I was glued to the TV watching this Avalanche Stars game. Now, I didn't see the start of the Stars-Avs game because I was glued watching the Rangers game, but Dallas scored 3 goals, bang, 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 early in the game, 3-0. And I gotta just give a shout out here to Kyle Shaggy Von Doom, co-host of Locked On Avs, who jokingly tweeted, "We got him right where we want him." That's funny. Right where you want him? Yeah, sure. Yeah, did he call that or what? Yeah, sure. So, yeah, why did I say he called it? Well, Colorado had a comeback of comebacks. They scored 2 in the second period, 2 power play goals from Valeri Nichushkin and Cale Makar, 3-2. Then in the third period, Nate McKinnon came out of the locker room like he lit a firecracker under his butt. Tie game at 3. This one goes to overtime. And then Miles Wood. Who would have expected Miles Wood to have the game-winning goal? Did you see that coming? I really did not see that one coming. Oh, and guess who got the game-winning assist on that goal in overtime? If you had Andrew Cogliano getting the game-winning assist on your bingo card, first off, I probably don't believe you. But yeah, Cogs got the game-winning apple. 4-3 was the final score. Cogs had a perfect pass from his own defensive zone to a streaking Miles Wood, who streaked in all alone, got the game-winning goal. So credit to Andrew Cogliano for having the presence of mind of seeing Miles Wood kind of make a break for it towards the net. So I'll give Cogs his props. Wood, perfect shot. So yeah, Colorado came back from 3-0 to win this one. Yeah, just an unbelievable game from that one. And an unbelievable comeback. And I got to give credit once again to Jess Brand on this one because I thought this was a hilarious stat. The last Avalanche 3-goal comeback in the playoffs, you've got to go back to April 26th, 1997, over the Blackhawks in the United Center. Chicago got the first 3 in 17:28 in the first, but the Avs responded with 6 unanswered. Cale Makar wasn't even born yet. I feel... Okay, first off, I feel old because I wasn't even in high school. Oh, man, I wasn't even a teenager when that happened. Oh, good Lord. Oh, man, that's how long it's been since there was an Avalanche 3-goal comeback in the playoffs. So thanks to Jess Brand for making me feel old with that one. Yay, thanks, Jess. So Cogs. That's his 4th assist on these playoffs. Kind of a neat little stat there. I want to go over the stats for First, the eliminated former Ducks. Labushkin, 3 assists, that's it. Benoit didn't score for Toronto. Sonny Milano didn't score any points for the Capitals during the playoffs. Kyle Palmieri had a goal and 2 assists, 3 points in the playoffs for the Islanders. William Karlsson and Shea Theodore both eliminated from the Vegas Golden Knights. Yeah, Dallas won their Game 7 in a 1-goal game, 2-1. Ooh. Karlsson wound up with 2 apples. Shea Theodore, pointless in the playoffs. Ooh. Then the Nashville Predators. Kiefer Sherwood had a goal. Luke Shen, nothing. So here's who's left for the former Ducks. I'll list them all first. Brandon Montour, Dmitry Kulikov, Hampus Lindholm, Danton Heinen, Pat Maroon, Kevin Shattenkirk, Stefan Nason, Freddie Anderson, Sam Steele, Josh Manson, Andrew Cogliano, Adam Henrique, Sam Carrick, Corey Perry. Of those players, Montour so far has 3 points, a goal and 2 assists. Hampus Lindholm, a goal and 3 assists, 4 points, but he's not leading former Ducks. Danton Heinen, 1 point on an assist. Pat Maroon, 2 assists. Kevin Shattenkirk, he has an assist in the playoffs. Even though he didn't play in the last game, he has an assist. Stefan Nason, 3 goals. That leads all former Ducks. Freddie Anderson, 4-3 record, .899 save percentage, 2.58 goals against. Sam Steele, he has a playoff assist. Shea Theodore, as I mentioned Josh Manson, he's leading all the former Ducks in points. 2 goals, 3 assists, 5 points. Yeah. Andrew Cogliano, 4 assists, 4 points, leading all former Ducks in assists. Adam Henrique, a goal and an apple. Sam Carrick has an assist. Corey Perry, nothing yet. The Oilers-Canucks series has not begun yet, but the rumor right now is that Adam Henrique is not going to play this series. According to Edmonton Journal, Adam Henrique is out for the first game. Other reporters say unlikely to play, but, a couple other say no, he's out. And it's looking more and more like he's going to be out for game 1. That's a big loss for the Edmonton Oilers. They could use that depth. They could use that depth scoring. Adam Henrique, we've seen come up in clutch moments in the past. He scored the series-winning goal for the New Jersey Devils back in 2012. We know he's clutch. He was clutch with the Anaheim Ducks in the recent past. So we know that he's up for the big moments. We know this. So just a shame to see him out for that series, but it is what it is. And I'll even go back to that 2012 run. Henrique was one of the biggest players on that playoff run and was one of the biggest pieces in getting the Devils to the Cup final when they eventually lost to the Kings in 2012. For him to be out, that hurts. I don't know who I give the advantage to in that series because Vancouver's on their 3rd string goalie. Artur Silovs should be starting. For Edmonton, they're very top heavy. Depth, we'll see. But that's just my takeaway on all those series and all the former Ducks. So once again, which former Duck are you rooting for? Let me know in the comments. Email me. Let me know which former Duck you are rooting for in this year's Stanley Cup playoff. With that, we're going to wrap up here because my dog is looking at me. She's ready to go to sleep. So I'll just say thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Don't forget this podcast is free and available across all platforms, including Stitcher, Spotify, Odyssey, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, ad-free on Amazon. Hit the subscribe button on YouTube. Don't forget about the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 YouTube channel. Subscribe to that. Check it out. You could email me at lockedonanaheimducks@gmail.com. The mailbag is open, so send me your questions. I will eventually get a mailbag episode out once I continue getting more questions. You could also follow me on Twitter at StimpyJD. Show's Twitter's at LO_Ducks. Once again, thank you all for your continued support. It is so greatly appreciated. For Locked On Anaheim Ducks, I'm Jason JD Hernandez saying have a great rest of the day. Please remember to be safe out there, be kind to one another, and Ducks fly together.